Hey, IDP Army, what's up? Welcome to Defense Matters, where we are talking mostly IDP, all fantasy football. I'm your host, Jordan Rains, at 50 Shades of Drunk on Twitter. I'm senior writer for DynastyNerds.com and co-host of the IDP 411 podcast, which you can find on expandtheboxscore.com, along with my full rankings for in-season and for your drafts. Which today's episode, we're going to go over kind of my rankings updates based on a lot of the news, some movements that have happened, some injuries that have occurred, things of that nature. Give you guys a kind of where I'm at right now, this last 10, 12 days before the season starts. And yeah, get you ready for any last minute moves you need to make and kind of give you guys some perspective on the season. So before that, though, I do want to say thank you to everyone who has left a 5-star review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It's been really cool to see that outpouring of love from the community. I wanted to actually read one of those back to you guys today. So I'm going to read the very first one I got back ever on this show was from Searbat. 5-star review. It says, one of the best IDP pods. Jordan is awesome. One of the best IDP minds. Also talks about more than just boring old tackle heavy leagues. So I appreciate that, Searbat. True. We do talk about more than just, bread and butter tackle heavy leagues. I don't think a lot of people play that a lot. I don't think it's the norm. But I actually do want to segue that into an announcement. A couple of announcements for the show, for me, just for, the season, all that good stuff. First and foremost, I don't know if you realize or not, but this show is no longer part of the Big Three network. There's, different reasons behind that, but ultimately our visions didn't align right. The timing just wasn't right for that. So, but this pod's going to keep going forward. They're going to keep going forward. They're going to do awesome things for IDP. Same over here. So I'm really excited for what 2020 has for all of us. So that's one piece of news. Another show announcement I really am excited to say is IDP 123 Scoring, which is up on the screen if you're watching YouTube, has been adopted by my writing or the company I work for, Dynasty Nerds, as the site standard for all IDP analysis and rankings and writing and all our tools and all things like that. So going forward, everything on, Dynasty Nerds is going to be seen through that angle and that lens, which if you guys have been following me, you've already been, kind of adjusting to that. That's kind of the way I look at IDP. That's the scoring format I suggest to people. I play in a lot of different scoring formats too, but this is just kind of the best of all worlds and the most fun for everybody. So just a quick rundown on IDP 123. If you can't remember or don't know, go check out episode 23 of the IDP 411 podcast. I broke it all down there, but it's simply, 1, 2, and 3 point plays. A 1 point play being a quarterback hit and assisted tackle, a 2 point play being a solo tackle and a tackle for loss, a 3 point plays being forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, passes defended, safety blocked kicks, and then 6 point plays are sacks, interceptions, and then of course your touchdowns. So there'll be a whole write-up on that on Dynasty Nerds sometime in the next week or two. We're working on the infographics and some stuff like that for it. But the original version of that article is up on expandtheboxscore.com. Go check that out. That should be linked in the description of this episode for you guys. And it was my pinned tweet for a long time. And just ask me if you guys want to see it. If you haven't seen it, I'll send you a link. So that's exciting news for me. That's exciting news for IDP in general, to get a scoring system, to get some common verbiage, some commonalities across different leagues. Hopefully more IDP content creators are going to start adopting this. I know there are a lot of people, I got a lot of love on Twitter for it from a lot of, people, and I really appreciate that. And it just kind of shows that the community overall at large is ready for this. And that's, I'm ready for the future, and I'm ready to get there, and I'm ready to, let's do this thing. So another piece of news, I'm just dropping bombs today. Gonna have a YouTube show coming soon to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel, hosted by yours truly. So that's going to be in season. I think I'm just going to do once, maybe twice a month. And then once we get to next off season, we'll see kind of where that goes. But I'm going to be doing a show on there. Guys, help me out with a name. I'm kind of got a few ideas in my head, but I'd love to hear what you guys think would be a fun YouTube name show for the name for the YouTube show over there on Dynasty Nerd. So appreciate them for giving me that platform too. I'm really excited to, share with the nerd herd, what IDP can really be and how it's going to take your entire fantasy football game, Dynasty especially, to a whole new level. So I'm really pumped about that. Yeah. And then another little piece of news, I want to let you guys know that while I am, I always interact with people on Twitter. I always try to answer everything on Facebook and Twitter, anywhere anyone tries to get a hold of me, and on, the Discord channel, the Fantasy Football Discord channel. I'm in that IDP room over there. I'm going to try to focus a little bit more this offseason in the Destination Devy defensive community. So go to the patreon.com/all gas and join the all conference tier, and make sure that you get you to add you to the IDP Talk channel. I have a lot of guys over there in that community that I've been talking to a lot about IDP fantasy football. And so I've been prioritizing kind of being there and being in, I try to be everywhere. So, but if you guys want to get a hold of me, that's kind of where I'm going to be kind of first and foremost. And then everywhere else, at all times available for you guys. So let us get into the fun bits. Let's talk about the actual fantasy football game that we love. Let's talk with some player news first before I get to my rankings update. So first kind of bit of news was Derwin James went down yesterday on the August 30th with a meniscus tear. He had surgery apparently today or yesterday is what Adam Schefter said, or Ian Rappaport was reporting. He's going to miss significant time. They said best case scenario is 4 to 6 weeks. That's a best case scenario. Could be up to 3 months, 12 weeks. So he took a big dive in my rankings, guys. I mean, that's a lot of ground right there. I mean, that's most of the season. Even if he comes back healthy after 4 weeks or 6 weeks, where's your team if you're drafting him right now? Where are you drafting him? Ultimately, my rankings for the season are going to be based on, where he's going to help me win and not win. And he's down in my rankings right now. He was number 5 overall. Knowing that it could be 3 months and knowing that it's going to at least be a month at the very least before you can even kind of start doing anything. We don't even know if that means he's going to play again at that point. He's at 39 for me right now. And these rankings got to have to be locked in 10, 11 days. So he could go even lower depending on what they say post-surgery. So buckle up, Derwin James. I've already been off of him kind of, especially at cost. And now, I mean, he's borderline undraftable at this point. I just drafted him in a league. I'm not excited. I'm looking to I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with him, if I'm being honest. He's already on my team, so we'll see. So next piece of news, this is a big one, and a guy that we love on the IDP 411, my dude Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick Ngakoue signed, he got traded from Jacksonville to Minnesota. He moved up in my rankings about, how many spots did he go up here? He had been floating down slowly all off season. He had originally been about 15, 16, and he'd slowly worked his way down. He was at DL 24 over the weekend for me. But now that this news has broke, and I know he's going to be playing football for sure, I know it's a good organization, and it's somewhere that he could potentially thrive. He's got another good guy on the other side of him. Yannick Ngakoue moved up. He's up to 16 again for me right now. He's in that tier 2 of defensive linemen. So yeah, I'm really excited about that for him. And they signed him to a contract as well after they traded him for a second and a conditional 5th. He signed a 1-year, $15 million contract with the Vikings. So that is where Yannick is going to be this next year at the very least. And I'm excited. Last year he had 41 total tackles. That's the best number of his career. 15 tackles for loss, which how I love guys get behind the line of scrimmage. Actually 13 tackles for loss. I'm sorry. 8 sacks, 17 quarterback hits. I mean, he was all over the place last year, and he really had one of his better seasons. With Jacksonville having Calais Campbell and having Josh Allen there, he still kind of maintained his prowess on the field. He played generally the same number of snaps he had last year. I mean, he's just, what you're going to get with Yannick, and that makes him to me one of the safer, kind of guys you don't have to reach for a defensive line in your league. So I was happy to see him get signed to Minnesota. That was a really big piece of news. That's probably the biggest piece of IDP. Those are probably the 2 biggest pieces of IDP news over the weekend. So another piece of news that kind of got buried with all this other stuff, Zach Cunningham, Houston linebacker, who I love, signed a 4-year, $58 million contract extension with the Houston Texans. He has been a tier 2 linebacker for me coming into this season in redraft. I have him in tier 2 ahead of some guys like Fred Warner, Tremaine Edmonds, Devin White, Deion Jones, who were all at tier 3 for me. Zach Cunningham led the AFC in tackles last year. He just got paid like a big dog linebacker because he's a big dog linebacker. You might not know his name, you might not show him the respect he deserves, but he got that bag, and that's because he earned it. So pay attention. He could easily lead the AFC in tackles again, or the NFC. AFC. I get them mixed up all the time. I'm so bad about that. All right. Other news: Mack Wilson, linebacker from Cleveland. He evaded surgery apparently, but they said he's going to miss a month and a half. Now, I don't know if that means like a month and a half of drills or practice, or if that means like he'll be back in a month and a half. They didn't really specify in the report that I read, but that's a month and a half. That's 6 weeks. That's, a third of over a third, almost a third of the season. So take that as you will. I'm not drafting Mack Wilson personally. Thankfully, I don't think I have a single share of him anywhere. So I have some Sion Taki here and there, though. And that's kind of the guy that I kind of think is first man up. I mean, we'll find out a lot week 1. So the other news we have here, Logan Ryan. Apparently he hired a new agent over the weekend, and he has multiple suitors per Adam Schefter is looking for the right. He wants the right money. So Logan Ryan, he's kind of reclassified himself as a safety recently. That was a little bit of buzz. He's unsigned, so people have been like, oh, he sucks. He's unsigned. Look, that means he sucks. And these same people are like, oh, Jadeveon Clowney's so amazing. Anyway, but apparently he's got people interested, and he's going to get signed. He's still got 10, 11 days. He's a proven veteran cornerback. I mean, I think somebody will find a way to get him on the field. So Adam Schefter said he's got suitors. I believe it. So he might be a guy to go to a target late in drafts if you're still looking. He's probably on your waivers in some leagues, so take a peek. Other news, Fred Warner, who I mentioned earlier, who was in my tier 3 for this season, was just placed on the COVID list by the San Francisco 49ers. That's not really moving him in my rankings per se. I think that's like, we don't know that he has COVID. That he's, generally can be a precautionary type thing. So until I know what exactly happened, he's not moving in my rankings, but it's definitely something to monitor. Other news, Mark Barron, linebacker / safety for the Steelers and the Rams, previously signed with Denver. He doesn't really do much for me. We'll just have to see. I think that might have just been a safety thing with Todd Davis getting hurt. They just want to have an insurance policy, a veteran who can play the position at some reasonable level. So we'll see what that really ends up being when it's all said and done. So I did hit on a couple of my rankings updates, but I have had even a few more since our last show. Marcus Golden has gone up my rankings. Previously, he had not been signed, or they hadn't figured it out when I'd recorded before, but he showed up. He's ready to go. I have him at DL 30 right now going into the year. He finished DL 8 last year in IDP 1-2-3 scoring. He had a lot of sacks. He had a lot of he had a good number of sacks, big number of quarterback hits, and a good number of tackles. So, he put himself up there. He was sandwiched right between Dante Fowler, who was 7, and Carlos Dunlap, who was 9. So there isn't really much going on pass rush wise for the Giants. He's probably their best one. On paper, at least he definitely is. So he's at 30 for me right now. You can get him at a discount, so I'm not going to push him up in my rankings necessarily so you can snag him. There's room for other guys to grow there, so maybe some of those numbers can come down. I'm like O'Shane Zimenez, for example, is a guy for the Giants that it was a sleeper crush on, I guess you could say. So other players that have moved since we last spoke, I brought Von Bell down just a touch. I had him at 6. He came down to 9. I couldn't justify some of the guys I had ahead of him quite yet. So my rankings move, they adjust. They're not set in stone. I'll put a list out 3 weeks later, something's different. I'm going to change it. I'm going to let you guys know about that. I can change my opinion. I can be fluid as new information comes. I go back and reevaluate my information all the time and decide if I'm too high or low on players all the time. And that's why you'll see, if you look at my rankings, if you visit them multiple times, you've probably seen some shifts here and there. But I just want to, again, that's what this episode's kind of for, to let you guys know who's moving and why. Bradley Chubb has gone up a little bit. Apparently he's looking good in camp. I was just kind of waiting to see how things were going and progressing, how fully he had recovered. So he got a bump. I think he's right around that linebacker 30 range. Let me double check here. Yep, he's linebacker 29. He is tier 4. You go back to the linebacker episodes, all my episodes, I broke down my tiers, so you should kind of have an idea of where these guys are. Danny Trevathan, another player who has gotten a bump since we last talked. He has moved his way up into tier 3. He's the bottom of tier 3, but he's just behind Shaq Barrett, just ahead of Kenneth Murray at linebacker 26. Really just that was kind of something I was just realized I was just too low on him. So I brought him up to kind of where I thought I would appropriately draft him, depending on whose name was on the board, based on some recent stuff I had done and been in, and some leagues that I'm doing drafts in now, and that's where he landed. So he has come up. Yannick Ngakoue, I mentioned earlier, he had been slowly drifting down. He was in the high teens to 24, I think, when we last spoke. He is now back up +8 spots to 16. On the season. And then Robert Quinn got a tiny bump. I had Eric Armstead ahead of him. And the more I just looked at it, the more I just think that they're going to have a pretty special pass rush this year in Chicago. They're going to kind of have to, I think. I don't know what that offense is going to look like. So that defense, they should. If anything's going on that team that's going to be positive, I think it's going to be defensive. And adding Robert Quinn for all that money, and after what he did success rate wise last year versus double teams, I mean the tackles were high, the tackles were okay, but the pressures were super high. The sacks he got home, tackles for loss were there. So Robert Quinn, adding him to Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack, who everybody's so quick to go to bat for. I don't see how Robert Quinn isn't set up to succeed. So give me 15, 16 games of Robert Quinn. He's got to be comfortably in the top 24 for me. So that was that. Well, like I said, it's going to be an update show. I don't really have anything else to share with you guys, except the next time you hear from me, it will be a week 1 ranking show, which is going to be super fun. I've already started kind of putting things together. I'll just give you guys a little teaser. Joey Bosa is going to be my DL1 for the start of the season. Rookie quarterback playing Cincinnati. I think just got paid. He's like one of the only healthy or guys that's showing up to camp, top tier guys. So there's a little teaser for you. Number 1, week 1 DL guy for me already is Joey Bosa. And I'll keep you guys up to date and that's going to come out probably sometime in the next 5-6 days. And then we'll be going into the season doing the weekly rankings. I'm probably going to try to, keep the show to 35 to 60 minutes, just depending on how things go. And I won't give you guys, a whole ton of information, but I'm just going to give you an idea of where my head is at on that week by each position group, kind of why I view it that way, and hit any notes or any commentary on stuff like that. And yeah. So thanks again for being with me, IDP Army. Really appreciate you guys. I'm going to try to read reviews as they come in, kind of make that part of this show. So, go leave a 5-star rating and a review. Really appreciate that, IDP Army. And I guess until next time, as my man Jared says, shout out, let's go, let's go, let's go.